Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prisma Dev AMA for March. Today, I'm joined by Will and Flo. They're both from the ORM team here at Prisma. Will, Flo, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a kind of a packed agenda, I think, today because the next couple versions of the ORM, sneak peek, spoilers, have a lot of cool stuff in them. So I'm super excited to talk about that and to really focus on our topic of simplifying the ORM today. So first, before we get started, for everyone who's watching, if you want to ask questions, get some answers from Will and Flo, please jump in our Discord and just sort of, hop in. We've got a Dev AMA channel there. Ask whatever questions are on your mind, and we'll get to those and make sure we answer them today. We'll also be checking out YouTube, so if you're in the YouTube chat, don't feel discouraged. We'll be absolutely trying to answer those as well.
We'll be watching it like a hawk.
Yes, absolutely. So Will, let's start with this. When you say, or when we say, I guess, like we're simplifying the ORM, what does that mean exactly? I mean, isn't that kind of the whole like Prisma thing? Is that it's simple? What does that mean to you?
Well, yes, of course. Prisma being simple is like the cornerstone of its DX. Our whole shtick is you write a schema in a nice little declarative language so you don't have all the complications of setting things up yourself and maintaining your database schema over time. So yes, Prisma is all about being simple. What we're changing now is we are going to become more simple. There are some like historical decisions from Prisma's past. Prisma's a pretty old project now. Some of those decisions aren't really that helpful to our users or to us anymore. So we're working now to undo those decisions and to replace them with stuff that is better, makes life easier for everyone from the get-go.
Awesome. And maybe let's I think one major one that we could talk about there is this whole thing about node modules and how the ORM has sort of interacted with node modules in the past. Do you want to talk about that and maybe sort of talk about the catalyst of that change and what's involved there?
Oh yeah, John, I could talk about this till the cows come home because this has been one of my pet peeves with Prisma for a long time. Before I worked at Prisma, I used Prisma in production at the company that I worked at, and yeah, this whole node modules topic really got my goat. So let me explain what that means. Like, to set the stage, when you use Prisma, you occasionally need to run this Prisma generate command. And for people who aren't super familiar with Prisma, that command is extremely important. It actually does exactly what it says on the box, and it generates code for you. When you use your Prisma client to connect to your database, you get type safety. So you get autocomplete in your editor that shows you what inputs you can give to your queries. The response that you get out will also be type safe. You can tell what properties it will have, what the structure of your models are. And those types come from that generation step. But historically, we have hidden away from users the code that actually gets generated. We stick it into node modules in the @prisma/client module. And that means that your imports look really nice and clean. You get to say, import me my Prisma client from the Prisma client package. And somehow TypeScript knows about all of these application-specific request and response types you'll get from the Prisma client, even though you're importing it from what looks like just a generic package. And that's because our generator does actually write the files into your node modules tree. And that's a cool trick. Like, I bet 5 years ago when somebody thought of that, they were like, wow, we are smart. But it causes problems all the time. If you're in a monorepo and your node modules, you have like more than one node modules folder, then the generator has to guess which one is the right one to stick it into. If you're using yarn PNP, you have no node modules directory. if you're just in your editor and you're generating your types again, the TypeScript language server expects node modules is not going to change unless you run npm install again.
Mm.
So it doesn't pick up changes in that directory. So just like all the time, this causes problems.
Okay, so you're saying, hey, there's this one benefit that, you know, people get out of it, but there's all of these tiny cuts that, you know, you'll run into, and overall they just sort of decrease that experience.
Tiny cuts or like gaping potholes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough. All right. Well then, let's maybe you know, how that's how things are right now, right? Like, I mean, maybe for people unfamiliar with Prisma, they might not know that there's a output that you can define. And it sounds like we're going to maybe double down on that. Is that sort of one
Yeah,
of the solutions we're doing here?
that's exactly where this is going. Like
Okay.
the alternative to writing your files into node modules is you can write them into your application source tree, which is really where they belong. We are generating application source for you that your bundler, when you use it, or your web server, when it's loading your source, it's going to find these files in node modules, but it makes a lot more sense for them to be in your source tree somewhere, like under your src directory somewhere. So the antidote to this historically like laughable node modules problem is tell Prisma where you want your files. And if it is anywhere other than node modules, a whole class of problems goes away for you.
Awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure that does fit under simplifying Prisma ORM. So yeah, that sounds great. And you know, I think I've seen the list of issues that's like, hey, we think it's going to resolve all of these things. And yeah, shout out to you, Will, for the quarterly roadmap that you did, and you just listed here are all the issues that we're going to close. That's really great to see that. You know, really tell people if you are following one of these issues, it's not going to be a problem anymore.
Yeah, we get some of those for free, and like we deliberately choose a path of work that we can do for the quarter that will hit a lot of different people's issues. Some of it we actually like have to go and put extra work into, but we're trying to pick a path that hits most people's problems as quickly as possible.
Awesome. Cool. And then maybe this is sort of following on from that. So Will, maybe I'll direct this at you as well, but Flo, please be welcome to jump in. Sort of another historical decision that was made with the ORM is about our use of dotenv, and both literally dotenv, like the library, but also dotenv files. Can you maybe talk about sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was directed at me, yeah?
Yes, but also Flo, if you want to hop in as well. I'm not bothered either way.
Flo, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, I think it's another good example in a way of Prisma sort of trying to be very beginner friendly in a way. There's like, oh, I'm just starting on one of my first projects and stuff, and like, oh, just take care of things for me. So in case you're not aware, .env is this library that loads your .env files automatically. Like there's some configuration that you can usually do as a user, like if you would use it in your normal project, you could configure it which files to load and stuff. But Prisma for the longest time has chosen the path of like, you know what, there's a .env file, we'll load it for you. And we think there's the right configuration in it for you to like your connection strings to your database or whatever else you might need or reference in the Prisma schema files or stuff like that. So that, similar to the node modules issue, has led to various issues out there, because not always you want to load your .env file. Maybe you have a more complex setup of like different hierarchies of .env files or in a monorepository setting, or maybe you're not using .env files at all, but you want to read from something like an AWS secrets manager or some other like configuration system or stuff like that. So this is going to be at some point like a breaking change that we're targeting with Prisma 7, that with Prisma 7, we're going to say like, okay, we're not loading .env files anymore automatically for you. But we're already making the first steps into that direction now in Prisma 6. So on the one hand, we recently introduced as like a early preview the so-called prisma.config.ts file that I think we also talked about in like previous sessions here. So one of the side effects, so to say, of like using this file already is that when you specify or when you have a prisma config.ts file around, already during like CLI time, so when you run commands like prisma generate or prisma migrate dev, we're not loading the .env file for you anymore. So it's your responsibility as part of the code that executes in the prisma config.ts file to load your environment variables to make sure that they are present and can be used. So for the simplest case of migration, it's like, I don't want to change anything on how my things work. You just drop in a single line as like require .env, and that's it. And the .env package will do the same as that did before, was what Prisma was doing for you. But that gives you way more flexibility to actually change things based on your own application logic and your own configuration needs and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So, and yeah, we're also looking into ways how we can change this in terms of like the client code, that also during like your client runtime, we're not automatically loading .env, the .env file anymore. And as I said, basically with Prisma 7, we want to make this the default. Like there's no more .env loading, no more magic going on. And I personally also think that this is a great opportunity also like for people getting started with projects, that they actually learn what's going on there, you know? Like it's cool if you can start with a tool and it's like very easy to onboard, but if it then gets confusing, it actually drags you down in your productivity. So I find it cooler also like from the perspective of a junior developer to be like, okay, the tool should guide me in the right way, how things are done, that I won't regret 3 months into the project or 3 years into my career. Then I'm like, oh, what is .env? What? Like I thought it's always done that way. So
you summed it up really well there. Like this whole push of ours is about getting rid of magic, surfacing behaviors that are already there, keeping the useful default behaviors and making them easy to opt into, but making them explicit instead of like always on, no way to opt out.
Awesome. So yeah, then it really does sound like, we're offering, hey, for the power user or even, for the intermediate user, if you want to do something that we don't expect, we're not going to make you jump through hoops anymore to get that done. You'll have this like easy path forward, and that sounds great. And also Flo, you mentioned that this is going to be the default in Prisma ORM 7, and we're going to have a this is kind of my job, so I'm kind of tooting my own horn, but we're going to have a really great like upgrade guide of here's what's changing. If you want the default behavior, here's what you need to do. And that sounds great. I think maybe you both briefly touched on it, but let's talk about those folks who are just getting started with Prisma and with Prisma ORM. What are we doing with them? Like if you're just getting started with the ORM, what is your default experience going to look like?
It's going to look really similar to what it looks like today. Like that's the goal. We're updating our init like templates that we'll scaffold projects from, so that the behaviors that you associate with Prisma today that make life easy for you are still there. We're going to start you off with .env behaving exactly the way that it does now, but it will be explicit so you can stumble upon it, and like Flo was saying, you can learn what it is organically as it becomes relevant to you. Same thing for like your output path. you're not going to care where Prisma is generating files for you, but at some point you're going to debug through your stack and see, oh, I'm now in my source/generated file tree. Wonder what this is. And there'll be doc comments there that explain to you what these structures are and why they've been generated for you.
Awesome. Cool. That's, yeah, I think that's great. And now, you know, Will, I think we had a conversation in the past that was talking about Prisma client's no longer going to be this mystery module that's like somewhere. It's going to be a part of your application. And if you want to go and look at, hey, what did I, when I ran the Prisma generate command, what did I just do? And that's going to be very, very obvious now of here are the files that we made. And here's how like it's all working together.
I think there can even be like a good benefit for you to have those files under your source control, because then you can not only see based on like, okay, what did I change with this commit or this PR in terms of like the Prisma schema language or like the prisma.schema file, but you could also see, okay, that's how it affected the generated types that you might anyways be importing in your application code as well, and makes it more transparent for your system. Like, oh, okay, so here I get the, I don't know, user create arguments, or here get a, like, that's the change to like the filters that are now possible on this specific model and stuff like that. So that makes it more explicit for you to dig into those things, to see those things, and to actually know where things are coming from in the end.
And you know, I think there are going to be some folks watching who are very, very excited to hear that, because I know that you know, similar, Will, what you mentioned previously, there's a whole class of questions and issues around, I have my Prisma ORM types and I want to get those types somewhere else. How do I do that? and now it's part of your application. Like they're right there. Just go get them. So yeah, I think that's really exciting and really a great change. You know,
Really
coming out for the ORM. So maybe let's change topics just a little bit. So this is like semi-related, but we're changing lanes a bit here, and that's to talk about code generation specifically. So there are different ways of you know, accomplishing the same thing. There's different ways of accomplishing the same goal, and in our way, when you're making the Prisma ORM work, we chose to go with code generation. Could y'all maybe talk about, let's start the most basic. What does that even mean? What is, when we run the Prisma generate command, like what does that even mean? But then moving on from that, why are we choosing that direction rather than something else that we could do?
Yeah. So code generation is exactly also what we talked about before, that we create those files, those types for you. And now we don't place them in node modules anymore, but to the designated output directory. For the most part, what we're generating is only type information. So there's a little runtime overhead, because actually all the execution, like we're not generating executed JavaScript code in the end that would do much, because that's already taken away by our abstractions, by our query engines and stuff like that. But still, you want to have this type information ready, available. So that's mostly what we generate there. The one thing that's in the ecosystem that we think is often underestimated is how much benefit you can actually get out of code generation versus when you do meta programming. Like, we all love TypeScript, and TypeScript is incredibly powerful also in its typing system. Like, I love this joke of like, you can run Doom anywhere. And just a few weeks ago, I think we had it in our Slack channels that like some crazy dude managed to run Doom in like just the TypeScript typing system and stuff like that. So that shows you how powerful it is, but also how complex that is and how much abuse potential that has. And like that can actually get kind of tricky if you depend on it for your productivity. If your types get maybe not the level of running Doom level complexity, but like somewhere in that direction, then
so
you might
what's
suddenly...
what's a typical example of where your regular application developer might be incurring a cost through their use of TypeScript?
Yeah, so like typical stuff is you want your autocomplete to work, or you want to hover over some type definition and like actually see, okay, what's in there. And oftentimes if you use complex derived types, for example, from like Zod schemas or like other libraries that leverage a lot of this meta programming, and you have a complex project, then this might take a few seconds even. And that's a benefit that we can leverage from our code generated stuff, because at the generation time, we are basically already doing a lot of the work that otherwise the TypeScript compiler would have to do any time you type or you change something. And we therefore can make it simpler for it by just, the compiler then just needs to look up, oh, that's like these 5 properties that are there, instead of like running down a long chain of stuff and deriving like, yeah, it's actually this how like an object looks like. So that's something that Prisma leverages heavily with the code generation. And yeah, we're also keeping a very close eye on like editor performance and type performance there. So just in 6.5.0 release, we fixed some things that under edge cases caused some issues where we got like significant speed ups now. And also with our new ESM generator, we're looking into ways how we can restructure our types a little bit to make them more efficient. We're also looking into using a test. It's a cool library out there with which you can evaluate your typing performance. So it's developed by the same guy who runs ArcType, David Blass. And yeah, we're looking into this to benchmark our performance to ensure that like with all the ongoing changes that we do, we continuously improve on our type performance, so that Prisma for you and your editor really feels snappy, also that your TypeScript compiler is snappy when you build something. And yeah, maybe we even have the chance to work together with David on getting some like in-depth analysis there.
That would be pretty cool.
Well, I think you might have buried the lead there just a little bit. So let's like talk about. I think you said an ESM generator. Let's sort of dive into that, and then maybe from that we can get to some of the audience questions that have been coming in.
Yeah. So a long-standing complaint that we have is like, okay, we don't have full ESM support of the generated code yet. And that's something that we're changing. And for that, we're building a new generator right now that for now lives next to the existing generator that outputs full ESM compatible code. So we'll actually output pure TypeScript code there. It will not be put into your node modules anymore, again. That's an important fact here. So it's automatically part of all your build pipeline, all your tooling, also tree shaking where applicable, etc. So through that, we can also make sure that we generate just the things that you need for your setup right now. And it's also a bit of an opportunity for us to like optimize our types there, optimize our output a little bit. And that's why we're also keeping those 2 generators separate for the moment, so that if you're afraid of like breaking changes or you want the old behavior, use the old generator for now, no change. But with like very simple config changes of like, hey, use this generator, you can get the ESM output and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I think we had a question come in for Twitter. I'm sorry, I can't for some reason show that on screen, but was asking about was mentioning that they ran into problems with PMPM workspaces, React router, that sort of thing. And it sounds like this will really help solve that. Where
that
these
is
bundlers
exactly
like
what this is for.
Yeah. So for React router, it's Vite, I believe. So Vite would now just see, oh, this is application code. I'm going to bundle it like anything else.
Exactly.
There's actually this npm package called like Next.js Prisma monorepo workaround plugin.
Yes.
Which is I'm sure you know about this. You have to write the documentation about. Yeah, so
I am not the
this will
culprit,
go
but
away. We don't need to replace this or improve it. The whole thing just becomes not a problem anymore.
yeah, absolutely. There was one other thing that sort of came in from the YouTube chat that I might have misspoken, so I'm hoping that y'all can bail me out on this, which is talking about, don't we already have types that can be imported elsewhere, like just import user from @Prisma client? And I think that, like, yes, that is true, but we're sort of changing how that works a bit.
Yeah, so yeah, you already, yes, Lewis, you're definitely right. There is, you already have the types and you can already import them. We're now just exposing them also more explicitly on your file system, that you can actually see them, and it's easier for you to navigate to them, and they become part of your application logic. And putting them outside of node modules also enables you to potentially import them more flexible in other ways. Let's say, like, usually Prisma is something you would run on your backend, right? Because we connect to the database. But maybe you want to use the same types on your front end. By using a custom output directory and having the type files there very explicitly, you could also just say, okay, so for my front end, I want these same type files imported based on my monorepo setup and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Flo. To turn to our Discord here, let me see if I can pull up our Discord real quick. Now it works. Great. So technology is really fun. We have a couple questions in here. One was maybe related to more of the content we talked about last month. Which was the JS engine, which I think is a really good way of phrasing it. But I think that's referring to our query compiler in this, like, JS focused, JS TypeScript focused Prisma client. Do we want to give a quick update on that?
Sure. Yeah, of course. The question was, like, when will it be available with MySQL, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Because it just went off screen.
Oh, yeah, I can fix that.
We're working on shipping this as a preview feature first, because we want to give people the opportunity to try it out in their production apps and see, like, are there any edge cases that we've missed before in Prisma 7, the next major version, this will become the only way of communicating with your database. Everything's going to go through this new architecture, and it'll bring a lot of improvements, but there's the risk that if we miss something, we'll break people's applications. So we want to get this out in preview first, and we'll ship it first for, I think first we're going to do Postgres, and then we'll do MySQL, and then we'll do the next database. I think Mongo is next. Anyway, we're going to hit all the first-class databases by Prisma 7. The next release, 6.6, goes out on the 8th of April. It won't be in that one, but it will be in the following release 3 weeks later. We'll get the first JS engine preview features implemented. That's the schedule.
Yeah, and for folks who maybe are interested in learning all about sort of what's coming up, on the Prisma repo in our issues tab, Will has posted a roadmap for our coming quarter. So that's March through May, and it has all this information and goes into super in depth of what you can expect from the ORM team. So yeah, I would really encourage you to check that out over on our GitHub.
There's like a whole list of checkboxes of everything we're going to deliver, and as we're shipping them, we're going to be checking them off.
A couple of questions have come in, and I can answer a few of those, or maybe direct them in a certain place. So for questions about like, hey, I'm having trouble like with my app in Prisma ORM, like I can't get this to work. We're not really set up to debug those kinds of problems live right now. So for those kind of questions, I'd really recommend going to our Discord. I'll put the the link. I would really recommend going to our Discord and asking in the help and questions channel. We have a ton of people in the community and from our team who are looking at that and helping out when they can. So I would really recommend jumping in those channels and asking there. I'm just saying this now, so if people come in and say, you know, hey, I really want this feature or this bug fix, like we probably can't get to those questions, and that's better directed towards the Discord help and questions channel. For open sourcing Prisma Studio, we don't have plans on doing that right now. That may change in the future, but as of right now, like we don't have any intention of open sourcing Prisma Studio. The good news on that is yes.
I was just going to say we are working on a reboot of Prisma Studio, a totally new rewrite, and I would love to hear more about what it is you wanted to achieve with open sourcing it. If it was just updates you're looking for, or if there were some specific features that you would like to see in Prisma Studio that maybe we can bump up the list.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, to say the good news is that, Prisma Studio has laid dormant for quite a while, and we're refocusing our efforts on making sure that it is top of the line database visualization tool.
Sorry for stealing your thunder there, John.
Yeah, I'm just so crestfallen. But it is great because I think that we have the opportunity here to really refocus in on Prisma Studio. And so if there's something specific that you want to see in Studio, or maybe you're like, hey, can I contribute to this? I'd really like to see this specific thing or this specific change. I believe that we still have a repo that collects issues for that. Is that correct, Will?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So if in the in GitHub for the I think it's just Prisma Studio, we're still looking at the issues that get posted in that repository. So if there's something specific you want to see and you're like, this is what Prisma Studio needs to fix all my problems, please do direct it there. And I'll put a link in the Discord chat here in just a second so you can find the right place. Any comments on what's going to happen with Pulse or its replacement? No comments on that right now. As soon as you'll know, especially in our announcements channel, we'll be more than excited to bring that back to folks. And if there are any specific information or help we can give there, please reach out to our support to ask questions or maybe get some direction on where to move from Pulse.
We would also love to hear what it is you're looking for. Like if you're feeling the loss of Pulse, what problem were you trying to solve with it?
Absolutely. Cool. Sorry?
What's our next question?
We have a question from YouTube that I'm going to put. I'm just going to try and summarize. Are you guys going to work on your own AI agent at some point? Prisma Schema is really easy for LLMs to understand, and I'm wondering if we trained our own models, it could be superior. The shorter answer on that is probably not. But there's always things can change in the future. I'll speak from personal experience. I don't know how I would develop an agent that does better than Claude, and that is my opinion on the matter. Is that I've used Claude both in like standalone things, then also as a part of VS Code or Windsurf, and it works perfectly. Understands the schema files really, really well, and generally generates pretty correct code. I don't know if Flo or Will, you had a different experience there.
No, I think like the good thing about the Prisma ecosystem is that there's so much high quality content already out there, be it from the community or our own docs and examples and stuff, that I feel like most AIs have already well trained on that. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we also had some initiatives going on in terms of like how we make our docs like accessible for all the like open formats for Claude and stuff like that for AIs to really be good, digestible for those systems and trainable on our data. So I think our goal there should be more like whatever tool you're using right now, be it Cursor, be it Windsurf, be it ChatGPT, just is good enough that it picks up the data and trains on it and gives you great results.
I think we do have some opportunities to give AI agents more ammunition though. Like we have a whole generation step and we're already outputting like tailored types. We could probably produce doc comments with code examples in them that an AI agent will internalize and then offer back to you as suggestions for how to build your app.
Exactly right. Yeah. So on the like docs side, we have the Prisma docs, which are extremely comprehensive, and we've recently added support for LLMs.txt and LLMs full to allow for LLMs and AI agents to sort of consume those docs quicker and cheaper. So that's already in place, like you mentioned, Flo, and we also have sort of initiatives there to improve that ability for LLMs to really hone in on the Prisma docs. But as we're moving into this world where the code of the generated client is part of your application, I think LLMs will naturally, understand how to traverse that tree better than going and looking at node modules and finding out what's going on. Actually, that's not. I know that for a fact. That's not. I think it will. It's like I know for a fact it will work better.
Yeah, pretty much.
So to answer the question more succinctly, we're not working on our own AI agent. We're working on making the tools that you use work even better with Prisma and Prisma ORM.
Yeah.
One of the questions sorry, Will. I think we're talking about the exact same thing. I skipped over a question here in the Discord. Is the current Prisma version good for serverless environments? Is it?
Yeah.
Will, Flo, is it?
I think the easy answer is yes. Like we have also like ongoing, we have like a large set of ecosystem tests, that's how we call them, where we test against various serverless environments. So be it AWS Lambda, be it Netlify, Vercel, Cloudflare, and stuff like that. So in all those environments, you can definitely run Prisma. Of course, for some use cases or so, you might have certain restrictions based on your database. Like some environments don't allow you to open like a TCP socket connection to a database. So you might not be able to connect through a TCP socket to your Postgres database. But there are solutions for that around as well. For example, like shameless plug, Prisma Accelerate being one solution for that. But as the industry is moving on, there's also like a lot of connectors that allow you direct connections over HTTP and stuff for those cases as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with that. And we also have a lot of great examples in our documentation on how do I use this with AWS Lambda, as you mentioned, or how do I deploy this to Netlify? And generally speaking, I think it works quite well. And I think one of the interesting things that you touched on, Flo, but is something that is really important to notice is that when you're developing in edge environments, sometimes the database you want to access isn't accessible because of the protocol. So if you are working in Vercel edge functions, or I think they may be called something different now, or a Cloudflare, opening up direct TCP connection to a database doesn't work. So drivers that are in JavaScript for that database won't work. Which is, I think, especially true of MySQL. I think there are ones that work for Postgres, but MySQL, there's not. And so we at Prisma are trying to do everything we can to make sure that the ORM works for those databases, but we do not have the bandwidth to create a new HTTP driver for JavaScript. And so it's our job to be very, very clear, in our docs that say, here's why you can't use this, if that happens.
But John, to add that onto that, there are cases where drivers exist that Prisma isn't compatible with. And one of our initiatives that we're working on at the moment is to make it easier and simpler to create adapters for those drivers to make it Prisma compatible with more things in the ecosystem, or where we're not, to enable developers to build that compatibility layer themselves.
Absolutely.
So I see that a couple of people were interested in this serverless question. Did we answer everybody's questions on this topic? Was there anything we missed? Going to take that as a yes. We have a.
Go for it,
Go
Will.
ahead. Okay.
No, please.
We have a more inflammatory question there. $sign on my mind asked us why someone should use Prisma over Drizzle. We knew this question was going to come up sometime. I'll give my 2 cents. You guys are free to do the same. I think Prisma and Drizzle are both great projects that have a lot going for them, but they represent fundamentally different perspectives on how to solve the same problem. Prisma's perspective is to make developers as expressive as possible. We give you a declarative, simple, easy schema language to describe your application domain. From that, we will create a database structure that will support your domain. And we will give you all of the code through our generation process to let your application do what it needs to get done. Drizzle's approach is the opposite of code generation. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it's a different set of trade-offs. They don't have a generation step. You write your schema describing your tables in TypeScript. And like we were talking about before, that means there is a bit more load on your editor and your language server to interpret and infer what types will come out of interactions with your database, but they build everything from that point. And that's kind of like the characteristic difference between Prisma and Drizzle. Prisma is the Prisma schema first, and everything else is derived from that. Drizzle is a TypeScript runtime executed schema first, and everything else is inferred from that. So you can pick either one, and it will kind of depend on what trade-offs you want to aim for in your project. Personally, I would say use Prisma, but I'm biased.
I think so are we all, in a way. And John, I think you're muted somehow, or?
I sure am. I was typing and didn't want to make that loud. But no, I was going to say that, yeah, we are all a bit biased. And Will, I think you hit the nail on the head there that it's just 2 different approaches to solve a problem. So it's not really a there are arguments for both. Hey, why should I use this over that over this? It's just two different approaches.
We got a question from the same poster asking if they want to join Prisma, are we hiring? How do they apply? I posted the link in Discord. We are always interested in people who want to join our team. Hit us up.
And if you want to help out with the open source ORM as well, where I think, Will, part of your, maybe not this quarter, but part of your vision for the ORM is to make it easier and easier and easier for people to contribute.
That's right. That's one of the benefits of making stuff simpler. It's easier to dive in and understand where stuff is and how you can make changes.
Awesome. Well, cool. So as more questions are coming in, I've actually have a few other ones that were on the on the ORM roadmap for this quarter. I'm not sure how hard or easy these questions will be, but one was, will switching the query compiler from Rust to TypeScript reduce memory usage for large queries?
I think I can answer that. So we haven't done testing or detailed testing on that end yet, but we assume yes, because there's way less data that needs to be handled as well on the Rust side and on the TypeScript side of things. So there, besides the CPU overhead of like serializing and deserializing data, there will be also, of course, less memory be allocated during that time. So we should definitely see some improvements there for large queries, since data doesn't need to be passed around that much anymore.
That said, that's probably not the biggest impact on memory usage, right? Like switching from Rust to TypeScript, it's probably the in-memory joins.
Yeah, it depends on where you see like the overall memory, like what's your main factor of when you talk about memory usage.
I guess that's true. But in any case, we're going to solve both problems. We have a preview feature in the moment that provides more options for joins. It's going to hit GA probably next quarter. And in the meantime, it'll probably get some improvements as we go.
Awesome. And then the second question that's there on the roadmap, what will the migration journey from 6 to 7 look like for applications running in production?
Good question. We want to make this journey as painless as possible for everybody. We're considering putting out a code mod or something to help people make the configuration changes they're going to need. But they're not that many changes and they're fairly straightforward. It's stuff like specify an output directory for your generated code, provide a driver adapter to your Prisma CLI and to your client. Driver adapters will be, like the configuration for them is going to be basically the same for everyone. It's going to differ slightly depending on which kind of database you connect to. Like I need a Postgres adapter or I need a MySQL adapter. You pretty much just read the changelog and follow a couple of steps. That will be it. As we said before, we're not, like with any change in architecture, we can't be 100% certain we'll get every edge case on the first try. So we're putting this out in preview first to encourage people to try it out. Let us know if there are unexpected roadblocks that you run into so we can address them before it becomes the only way to do things in V7. That answer the question?
I think so.
I think one more tiny thing that we could add on there is like follow also best practices to stay up to date on your database versions, your Node.js versions and stuff like that, because such major version bumps are also an opportunity for us to say like, oh look, this ancient Postgres version down there, it's already like in extended lifetime support hanging on by a thread. We're not supporting that anymore. So yeah, also might save you some money on your AWS bill if you migrate off old versions, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely right. And we'll have a major version migration guide in the Prisma docs. We do that for every major version upgrade. But for things like configuration and these things that we are making preview features before we go live with them, I think in the past we've been very hesitant to recommend preview features for people in production. Flo, you've got some fans. That's great.
We'll be bringing you back next month.
Yeah, we're bringing you back for sure.
I guess it's less skincare routine, but more like Apple's camera AI or whatever stuff they run over there to like touch up your appearance these days. So thank you.
Yeah, so this migration guide will include how to switch from 6 to 7. In the past, we haven't really wanted to for people to use preview features in production, and I think these preview features are kind of the exception, where we're saying, hey, we're very confident in these, but we're releasing them as preview features so that they're not mandatory.
Can I correct you there, John?
Yes, please.
All preview features in the future will be treated this way. If something reaches preview, it is no longer experimental. It means we have confidence this is going into GA. This is the last step where we double check everything is working according to plan. I
need to update some docs. Yeah, so when we have these features and prior to Prisma ORM 7 coming out, we will say, hey, to make your life easier, enable all of these preview features. And your upgrade to Prisma 7 will be significantly easier.
We're going to be super transparent about this upgrade path. As each piece becomes available, we're going to make it clear this is the next step in your upgrade to V7. If you do this now, when V7 comes out, you won't have to change anything.
Exactly. Just a few more minutes here. So folks on Twitter, YouTube, Discord, please continue to ask questions. I'll answer this one here that came through on both YouTube and Discord about the best approach for troubleshooting timeouts in Accelerate. I answered this or something similar a bit earlier. We're not really set up to like debug stuff live on air or provide like general debugging tips kind of thing. For this, I would really just say to reach out to either our support or the help and questions channel in the Discord. Those are the best places to get those kind of answers and to really figure out, dig in more to your problems specifically, rather than what we can do on air.
Not that we don't want to help, but just like to put this in perspective, none of us work on Accelerate. We don't know how to solve this problem.
Yeah, and the last thing that you could try is turning on the tracing. I think it's still a preview feature. Is that correct, Flo?
I think
it's GA now.
Yeah, I think we GA'd that with Prisma 6 or 6.2 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there's a tracing feature inside of the ORM, which will give you a lot more data on what's happening under the hood. That should help you out as well. Question that came in from YouTube. I really like this one. What is the best learning path for Prisma ORM?
You're the expert.
I do not think I can tell you a best learning path because like how people learn is very, very different. I think that we as Prisma have some really great resources. Our data guide, if you haven't checked that out, it is a really great place for folks to learn a lot about databases in general, how they work, that sort of thing. If you're more, wondering, hey, I am just now hearing about Prisma ORM, where do I start? Our docs has a really, really comprehensive getting started guide that both gets you started with a project. Here's how to use Prisma ORM. Here are like the ways that you access your database, but then also points to other resources where you can level up your knowledge past that.
Yeah. Aside from that, I mean, as you said earlier, John, it's always like a style question, but I learned that a lot of people learn just by doing things. So my approach, if I want to learn something new, is I think of something that I wanted to use, like an app that I wanted to have a long time, and just try to build it myself, and then learn as I go through problem by problem and stuff. And I think Prisma ORM is very suitable to that because it has a very low barrier to entry, and then you can dive into the more complex objects as you need and follow our docs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. We're running up on just a few final minutes here. Flo, Will, any thoughts, final thoughts to share about the next, 3 or so months of Prisma ORM?
Well, for my part, I'm really excited about all the stuff that we're working on. Like, there's so much things in the works. There's also stuff that we haven't touched on here, like changes that we're gonna do to our CLI that it can actually run also in web environments, which is a pretty major step forward. That's very cool moving forward. So yeah, lots of work ahead, definitely. That as well. So I won't be bored, that I know. And I'll continue to learn a shitload of stuff. And yeah, it's just amazing to be part of such a cool company, and also the interaction with the community so far has been really nice and delightful. So
yeah, I'm very, very excited that we are getting rid of this node modules nonsense and generally like making everything more predictable and simpler. I would love to see more of that in the future. And I think we will find some ways of improving things like the CLI API. But just with version 7, we have so much cool stuff coming out. I don't write any of the code, so it's not going to be my hard work everyone's appreciating, but I am very excited to see it become available.
So I think also, Will, a quick plug, you were recently on a podcast talking about basically all of this. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. With HTML, all the things, Mike, we had a good solid hour or so chatting about the Rust to TypeScript migration, what's coming up with ESM support and Prisma 7, and yeah, all the goodies that we just covered as well. He is a great host. I had a really good time with him. I highly recommend you check out their podcast. The episode with me on it isn't out yet, but it will be soon, and they're always good for a listen.
Awesome. Yeah, let me get the link to that so folks can check it out as well. I believe that it's not quite yet published. Is that right? It's going to be soon?
I imagine soon. Should be in the next week or so, I think. But
Awesome.
You'd have to ask them.
Yeah. No, that's great. And yeah, I'm posting in our chat about HTML, all the things. Please do go check them out. Yeah, that was very, very kind of them to have us on talking about all the crazy stuff we're doing. Well, great, everyone. We are out of time. Thank you so much for your continued questions and for showing up and spending some time with us. It's actually kind of wild how many people tune in, and we've topped. We had about 500 people last week, and we've topped that. So I am thrilled to spend time chatting with you, and it's awesome for people to join in and are so interested in Prisma ORM and what we're doing. So until next time, we will have another one of our AMAs in about a month, and we'll see you all there. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye bye.